Hi, everyone. It's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is Nathan Harrington. Welcome.
Hey, good morning. Good
Hello.
afternoon, and
Good
thanks for
afternoon,
having me.
Nathan. It's great to have you here. It's such a pleasure. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
a beautiful
Awesome.
spring day.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, it is great to have you here with us today. And so I want to begin actually by having you talk about yourself a little bit. So introduce yourself to our viewers and let us know a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. Well, I was born in DC and grew up in Rockville, Maryland. And pretty early on, I had a kind of a sustaining connection to nature. I lived on a suburban street that had a creek running through the middle of it, and I think when I was about 6 years old, my brother helped me pick up some of the trash that would come through there every time there was a rainstorm. And was in the Boy Scouts. I went to Quaker church camp and ended up going to college in Maine. And being a teacher, I taught middle school and high school social studies in Prince George's County Public Schools for 8 years. I taught elementary school Spanish for a year. And one of the hobbies that I developed during that time was picking up trash. For some reason, I don't know, from teaching, I was just like constantly interacting with people and I was always indoors. And so when the school day was over, I wanted to be outside. I wanted to do something physically active. I kind of wanted to be by myself.
Mhm.
And I just found I have some obsessive compulsive tendencies. And for whatever reason, picking up trash just felt really good and really useful. It was something that people appreciated. So, and I saw a need in Ward 8, Southeast DC, where I live. We have a lot of green space, a lot of public parkland that just was not being taken care of by the National Park Service or by the city.
Mhm.
And looked around, talked to different people, found out what other groups were and were not doing. And I saw kind of a gap of just taking care of this land and trying to undo and reverse some of the
Uh,
decades of neglect
yeah.
that the land had suffered.
Certainly, certainly. And that's so lovely and so such a great help to our environment and our communities. I'd love for you to tell me more about the, Ward 8 Woods Conservancy.
Yeah, so we are a small nonprofit environmental organization. We are the only environmental organization that's based in Ward 8 and focuses just on Ward 8, which for anybody who doesn't know is one of 8 sort of boroughs or districts within the District of Columbia. Each one has about 80,000 people. Ward 8 is the far southern part of the city. It's east of the Anacostia River. This is it here. It includes Anacostia, Congress Heights, Bellevue, Washington Highlands, Fairlawn. And we have more than 500 acres of forested parkland. You can see Shepherd Parkway, Oxen Run, Suitland Parkway, and Fort Stanton. All of those areas have really unique history to them. So there were during the Civil War, the Union Army built forts on a lot of these hilltops, and you
Mm.
can see the remains of these forts. There were African American communities that formed around those army installations. In the case of Oxen Run, you also have military remains, a shooting range that was from the 1940s. That's still there. In Fort Stanton, or sorry, at Shepherd Parkway and Fort Stanton, you have incredible views out over the city. But what you don't have in most of these areas are trails to actually take a walk. You don't have signage
Mm.
to really let people know about that history or the fact that this is part of the national park system. And what you have instead are hundreds of thousands of pounds of trash that Ward 8 has just been used as a dumping ground over the years for construction materials, car parts, tires, landlords who don't provide proper waste disposal for their residents. The residents end up throwing things in the woods just to get it away from their homes. And and so we realized it was going to need more than just me on my time off, more than a couple volunteer events each year, like for Earth Day or Martin Luther King Day. We realized we actually needed a professional crew that would work week in and week out throughout the years. And there was a huge demand among Ward 8 residents for job opportunities that were low barrier. We have a lot of folks who just have trouble getting jobs because of discrimination against ex-offenders and returning citizens, because of drug testing policies, because of gaps in education or credentials that they have. So the goal of the Park Steward program is to give people chances and opportunities to develop their competency as professionals while doing something that's physically difficult and sometimes dangerous, but also really rewarding. Because if it weren't for us, this work wouldn't be happening. And it's something that residents really appreciate. You know, we are kind of living in this digital age where a lot of people kind of live through their phones and their computers, and people are living kind of sometimes in the metaverse rather than the real world. And we're kind of an antidote to that, because we're really just hyper focused on the hyper local and neighborhoods and little pockets within those neighborhoods that just nobody's paid attention to or cared for. People think it's dead space that's not good for anything. But we know that urban forests help to clean the air that we breathe. They help to clean the water. They provide shade. They break up those heat islands that make the city hotter than the outlying areas. And they offer benefits for physical and mental health of people who live near them. And even better, when people are able to actually take a walk or go bird watching or forest bathing and immerse themselves in nature. They've shown incredible healing benefits that come from that. And historically, there's been unequal access to a clean environment and that sort of outdoor recreation.
Yes.
So ultimately, we're trying to equalize the situation, say, between parks in Ward 8 and, for example, Rock Creek Park or the C&O Canal. Those areas that are in whiter, more affluent areas that, because of the history of segregation and racism, have just received a lot more attention and maintenance than the parks over here have. And we're trying to do that in a way that brings benefits to long-term residents.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, our environment is so important. And especially as we now live in a time where so many of us are environmentally aware, many of us understand what human action, you know, does to our environments, you know, how we can affect that negatively. And many times, you know, ways how to curb, you know, that kind of destruction, or, you know, to curb. Many times it's ignored in some communities, as you pointed out. And Ward 8, of course, you know, suffers from that many times, ignored in so many ways for so many different things. Right. And, you know, what you're doing and what Ward 8 Conservancy is doing, right? Ward 8 Woods Conservancy is doing is, you know, really putting a focus there. I love that it's really focused on Ward 8, you know, that way the goals can come to fruition. Talk to me a little bit about, you know, the importance of what, you know, this work does for Ward 8, but also how it helps, you know, really push forward, you know, a good environment, you know, setting great examples for even the rest of the city to follow. And hopefully, you know, as we move forward in this future, trying to create a better world and, you know, to keep it good for everyone and not just for a select few, but for all.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes there's a perception that only certain kinds of people are interested in nature or outdoor recreation, and we're trying to counteract that. You know, it's so much of it just comes down to access. If people have not been made to feel safe or welcome in those spaces, that sort of filters down into people not having the experience with it. So we're trying to provide those opportunities. You know, there are a lot of regional efforts to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, to clean up and restore the Anacostia River, which flows into the Potomac River, and the Chesapeake Bay. And what we do in Ward 8 Woods really fits into is a piece in those larger puzzles. But as I said, it's also kind of a niche or a corner of that puzzle that was being neglected.
Yes.
So we're not on the river itself. We're not dealing directly with climate change. What we're dealing with mostly is pollution to the land, to the soil, which obviously has a visual impact. In fact, there's some studies showing that people are more likely to be depressed when they are surrounded by trash. But it impacts the productivity of these forests. I mentioned the benefits that come from living next to a forest. You can imagine the harm that would come if you live next to a dump. And unfortunately, some of our woods have been treated as in such a way that it's woods, but it's also a dump. So we're trying to remove the dump from the woods so that people can have the benefits of being close to nature.
Certainly. And tell me, what's the response been like from, community members who have, benefited from now having a cleaner, greener space, as well as the response from those who are able to work with, to work with you, to work with the Conservancy, and be able to access, low barrier jobs in ways that they probably could not have been? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, there's a really justified suspicion amongst Ward 8 residents because there's so much history of being lied to or cheated by government agencies and developers. A lot of promises have been made and not kept. At the same time, there's a lot of fear about gentrification. People see the way African-American residents have been displaced from other parts of the city. And they worry that that's starting to happen east of the river. So we really acknowledge that and think of it in terms of environmental justice. People, nobody deserves to live surrounded by trash. And I think that's something that's pretty non-controversial, no matter what your perspective is on the politics of gentrification. Nobody really gets upset about cleaning up trash. And we do, we also pay attention to those issues of housing justice that really, at the end of the day, determine whether people are going to be able to stay where they've been or not.
So tell me, is there a call to action for anyone who's watching, for community people to, help to, in any way assist the goals of, Ward 8 Woods and what you're doing? Any call to action for anyone out there?
Absolutely. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Ward 8 Woods. You can visit our website, ward8woods.org. Where you can sign up for our volunteer events every first and second Saturday. We welcome volunteers. If your high school students need community service hours, we're happy to complete that paperwork. We're also happy to host groups, churches, workplaces, schools at other times. Through our website, you can also donate because it really takes money to keep our park stewards paid and equipped and to put gas in our truck to keep hauling the stuff to the dump. But what we do is very cost effective. We really kind of in some ways do the government's job for it. And we do it at a very low cost. Almost all of the money that you donate to us goes directly to into the pocketbooks of the people who are doing this really hard work. So we're not putting out reports, we're not attending conferences, we're not shuffling papers. We're really like on the ground, improving the environmental conditions in a very concrete way.
Thank you so much. And we want our viewers to know that the link will be in the description below, so you can go ahead and check out everything that Ward 8 Woods is doing, and you can provide help in any way that you can. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nathan. It has been such a pleasure getting to talk with you and getting to learn more about Ward 8 Woods. And thank you for the work that you do in our communities. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those watching, please follow Team Racing Productions at Team Racing on all forms of social media, and click around on our YouTube channel and check out more of our videos and what we have to show. And please like, comment, and subscribe. But most of all, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.